I've talked at length of how almost every single product on Amazon has some form of seasonality to it. Whether you like it or not, every type of product really has some form of seasonality. It can be something where a product can sell fairly consistently all year round, but that's not going to stop it from having some seasonality to it. The reason for this just comes down to a simple fact. Amazon has its own forms of selling seasons. They have things such as Q4 where they make big advertising pushes on their own. They also have things where they make big advertising pushes around Prime Days. They do it as well in a certain area of the year, and that would be spring. Spring seasonality is actually one of my favorite types of seasonality on Amazon because it's coming out of, Q4 where you then have a giant sales lull going into January usually, and now you're getting into spring. People are getting back into buying, they're getting back outside, and it really just is going to be the largest starting season for the majority of categories and sellers on Amazon. So we're going to dive in today more and more into seasonality, how to prep for that, and what you should be looking at over the next couple of months for your product seasonality. Now, before getting straight into spring, we have to talk about one specific season, and that is the season of love, aka February. We have Valentine's Day just around the corner right now. If you haven't already started setting up your advertising campaigns, you're going to be a little short on it. The reason for this is that Valentine's Day is a 2-week period, realistically, of people purchasing items for it, trying to get something for their special loved one, and is the perfect time if you have some form of giftable product to really capitalize on it. Also helps going into the spring season with a little bit extra sales volume. So what do I suggest here? I'm going to be very, very specific with it. And I mean that both on the advertising side and on the idea of how we're going to talk about it. So what I mean exactly is use more sponsored product exact campaigns. You want to be targeting exact phrases for Valentine's. You don't want to be too broad. The reason for this is that Valentine's is one of those things where people are going to be very niche in how they pick out products, right? They're not going to be searching very broadly just saying Valentine's, right? And if they are, that's still a keyword that's going to have a ton of search volume that you're going to be competing too often with so many different sellers. So you really want to get very specific in how you're targeting, where you're targeting, and your placement strategies around that as well. But enough about the season of love. Let's talk about the big fish in the room, and that is spring. March is the start of spring, and it's the time to really start to dig in as seasonality kicks in for a lot of people. What kind of seasonality are we looking at in March? Well, it's going to start warming up. People are going to be going outdoors, so more outdoor products, more sports products. People are thinking about spring cleaning, so even cleaning supplies see a little bit of a bump come March. These are the type of things where you need to understand what your category looks like from a year-round perspective, and I can almost promise you a large percentage of sellers are going to be seeing a giant bump come March. So how do you prep for this from an advertising perspective? Well, the best way to go about this is going to be twofold. First and foremost, you can start targeting some more spring-oriented keywords, such as the spring cleaning that I just talked about, if you are a cleaning product, that is. Or you can go into a little bit different of an approach. This approach is one in which I typically like taking because it's the non-beaten path, I guess is the best way to put it. So the approach that I would always suggest for you when it comes to spring and targeting and just trying to capitalize a little bit on those spring shoppers is this. First and foremost, from a sponsored product perspective, you want to try and go after all of your competitors very early on in the spring season, and you want to use search terms that are attributed to those exact type of selling seasons. So if your product is an outdoor product, let's say, you want to be targeting things such as spring activities, and you want to be targeting your competitors in that capacity because that's going to allow you to start getting a little bit of sales tracking and taking a little bit of market share during the spring season from those competitors. Now, secondarily to that, we want to be looking at things also like sponsored brand campaigns. Sponsored brands are one of my favorite just because the idea of doing something like a video at the top of the carousel that's going to really launch you and propel you forward from an overall placement standpoint. You want to be able to really put your product first and foremost when it comes to spring sales. This is one of the easiest areas that you can really look at when it comes down to how you're going to be targeting in the new year and in spring session. Now, lastly, I'm actually going to not say sponsored display. Instead, I'm going to recommend, if you have the budget for it, typically a minimum of $5,000, realistically more like $7,500, use DSP advertising. Now, DSP advertising is something that I think is very, very crucial for a lot of sellers going into 2025. It's something that not many people are targeting still, and you realistically should if you have the ad budget for it. The reason for this is that you're going to get a lot of that retargeting, remarketing towards very specific individuals. DSP as well is going to be a little bit cheaper going into spring than it would be in, say, something like Q4. So there's not going to be as many advertisers in the space overall. So you're going to have an easier time when it comes to getting those placements. DSP is, I think, an undertapped market as far as the entirety of Amazon goes for a majority of sellers. Yes, from a cost perspective, but even still, I think for seasonality of products, it's going to be really important for you to get DSP early and often. Now, finally, the only other area that I would suggest is spring promotions. This is one of those things where you can look at stuff like brand tailored promotions for your actual spring seasonality. They're really going to help you. Once you actually get a little bit more into that, you really want to be targeting new to brand consumers. New to brand consumers are really going to help you going into the spring season as well as the summer season, as that's going to bring a new group of people, new group of buyers onto your brand, onto your products that you didn't have before. Especially if you have a form of product that can be a subscribe and save, absolutely go after new to brand buyers rather than more of the retargeting side that, brand tailored promotions is typically used for. As I said in the beginning, every single product almost has some form of seasonality. If you have spring seasonality on your product, or you believe you do, easy way to check, go to Helium, check your chart, and see historical years when that seasonality starts. Again, it's more than likely near the beginning of March or the beginning of April. Around these times is when I really would suggest implementing these strategies, as it's going to help propel you forward not only in spring, but also come into summer and fall. So you really want to focus right now on getting your ranking up, taking a little bit of market share from your competitors, and trying out new advertising strategies and promotions. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for all of the different videos we're going to be posting. Also, leave a comment down below for any other video topics you want us to cover or anything you're interested in.
I know how tough it can be juggling PPC, SEO, and account issues while trying to grow your Amazon business. That's why we're here. At My Amazon Guy, we've helped thousands of sellers like you. Scan the QR code or click the link and let's tackle your biggest challenges together.